So there's that whole narrative of, because of how far black people have come, when something big, quote unquote, happens, like the first black person to do this, or the first black, it's almost, the distraction is almost taken away from what they're representing. Right. And it seems as though, because they're the first black person to do it, we're going to celebrate it, you know. So the same way with Kamala, am I saying her name? Like Kamala Harris. So she's the first black woman to even make it this far in American politics, and, you know, even to the point where she's, you know, running for president. So of course, as black women, as black girls, we could see that and be inspired and see it as inspirational, really good, and, you know, all of that. But if we look back to even Barack Obama at the time, you know, even our parents were happy, like first black president.
I was gassed, I won't lie.
Everyone was gassed. But then I'll be honest, I don't really know much in terms of the behind the scenes and what Obama actually did with his, if he fulfilled his manifesto and done everything that he said he would do it, because I'm seeing, like, even from black people saying he didn't
he didn't do a lot for the
do you know what I mean? So
great character, likable personality, but didn't do nothing, do you know, for black people.
So in that sense, it's like they've dangled it in your face like the first black, and we're all excited over it, but is it for a bigger narrative that they're trying to push, just to hush you that now the black people who wanted, and they're now doing it, and
you have someone like, that representation, diversity,
exactly what they're actually representing, is it for the greater good of the community and the world? Same way with her name, Kemi, I don't remember her name, Badenoch. She's now the leader of the Conservative Party, and sometimes some people's brain can't even put those two things together, the fact that, you know, you're on the far right Conservative Party and it's a black woman at that. So things like that is just up for discussion.
I have two questions on it, because one is, do you feel like a person's race is the dictator as to whether they're going to be a good president for you or a good prime minister? As us three, do I, like, does it make me, when I'm thinking about politics, does the race of the person or the gender of that person make me feel more confident, or
absolutely not?
No,
absolutely not.
Like, for me, I feel like this is a big thing in America more than it is here, but I think it's seeping into the UK culture of, in order for me to feel represented, in order for me to feel like things are going to be good for me, the person in power needs to look like me,
right?
And honestly, I actually think that is it just doesn't make sense.
You're setting yourself up for disappointment.
For big disappointment, because one, not everybody that looks like you is for you. That's really...
It's like the saying, what's the saying? Not all
skinfolk is kinfolk.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I'm just like, being a human, especially if you're a Christian, I need us to all hear this one.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a Christian, you're not meant to be able, there's neither Jew nor Greek. That's what the Bible talks about. It talks about how when it comes to the field of Christianity, there shouldn't be anything disorganizing us and segmenting us into all these different groups.
Because that defeats what Jesus did.
The purpose of what Jesus... We want the best person, the person that will bring the most glory to God, to be the person in power. It tells us as people that are under people to pray for the people in power.
To pray for our government.
Whether they're short, tall, black, white, blue, yellow, green, you know.
And that's why, you know, when you were speaking about the literally the rant that what's her name? Sorry, Kelechi,
yeah.
I'm not okay. I'll be completely honest.
Speak up, girl.
I see where she's coming from, in the sense where, over time, unfortunately, as a community, black community, we have been disappointed time and time again when we see someone who looks like us in a position of power and they have done nothing for us. So it's almost like, oh, how can I have hope that this time will be different? So maybe that's the aspect that she is coming from. I don't know, I didn't watch the video. With that being said, I feel like we need to get out of this victim mentality, in a sense where, okay, well, there's now this black person in position. What can they do specifically for me, for my community? What do we have to gain from this? What did she say in her video you mentioned? That she said, oh, just because this person has been selected, it's like there's an agenda, or it's...
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
They're using it to
dangle it. Almost like, because they're distracting the whole, like, first black person to do this, or first black person to do that.
And you know what? Maybe...
they're almost pushing a narrative.
Maybe she might be right. Or it could just be, right now, she's the best person for the job to clean up their mess.
Right.
Because they're in a lot of trouble,
was
Conservative.
She in the Labour Party before?
Who, Kemi?
Yeah.
I don't know where she's from. Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
She's always said...
She's always
been conservative.
So there was a video of her saying that it's not about her being black.
Oh, she said it?
Yeah, she very much was just like... But she was on the
She's always
Okay.
had very. She's always had very. Yeah, very
Okay.
outlandish. She's always
And
been
that's-
right wing. The things that she's always said has always been right wing. So I don't
And this
imagine
is
she's
the
been in
issue:
Labour
is
Party.
we see black people in position, and we think, oh, they're supposed to have these values, these morals. Haven't we learned? Even let's take it back to like very surface level stuff. Love Island. We see a black person go in there, and we put an immense amount of pressure on them, expecting them to meet these expectations and expecting them to be like the typical black girl, the typical black boy, and when they aren't, we're disappointed.
throw them
How
away.
literally you throw them under the bus? Oh, they're an Oreo, they're this, they're that. How about Kemi just holds those beliefs?
And that's her belief system.
Whether you agree with it or not. The same with Candace Owens. A lot of people call her, oh, you know, she's a sellout because
She
she
hates
holds.
black people.
Those are her views.
regardless of her skin colour.
Regardless of her skin color. It's why you have so many black people in America speaking up, saying they're going to vote for Trump. And whilst there's some black people thinking, but why? How? Because those are their
Those are
views.
their values.
Whether you agree with it or not, there are some people, some black people who didn't come from impoverished communities, some people that did come from impoverished communities, but can still hold certain values, whether it makes sense to you or not.
It's so interesting you talk about that because do you know what the okie dokie is for America specifically? I've been watching a lot of videos around their elections and everything, and specifically with Kamala Harris. Kamala, yeah, they're pitching her as a black woman. This woman is not black.
She never identified as black.
Not only is she not
Prior
black,
to that.
she's biracial, yeah. Not only is she biracial, the brown part of her is Asian. She's not okay. You see, this is why I'm worried about people in general. What they're trying to do a lot of the time is bait people.
Yes,
right?
that's the word.
So they're gonna use somebody as a figurehead, yeah, to make it look like they're there for you, and that's what they're doing with Kamala specifically. Like, obviously, I don't know. Like, I'm not American. I don't read their manifestos. I don't read their policies. But what I do is I watch like commentary and debates around how people feel about the different parties and everything, about the different candidates and everything. And what's been very interesting is how she shapeshifts when she goes to different states when she's talking to people. I've seen a clip of her talking as though she's a black preacher from the 60s, and then one minute and all
And
this
then
random, it's all this caricaturism to like appeal to like, and it's like people just keep falling
It's
for the
just
okey-doke.
laughable
It's
at-
laughable, and it
You're a
makes
joke.
black people look as though they don't have brains, right? It makes it makes us look like, I don't know how to explain it. And
I know what
she's
you're
a
saying,
big-
sis.
She's actually a prop to the bigger agenda that they're
if that,
portraying.
and it speaks to what Ash was saying, like, about people are allowed to have their views and they shouldn't be outcasted from the race that they belong to, when you already know race is a social construct. But okay, apart from that, they shouldn't be outcasted from a community because they have a differing opinion to you.
Hi there. Are you enjoying the topic right now? If you are, go down below in the comments because we want to hear from you.
It goes back to the conversation we
I
had
was
about
gonna say that.
like liberalism versus conservatism. A person doesn't embody everything you believe, and because they don't embody everything you believe, they're automatically
They're
your
shunned.
enemy.
Right.
Candace Owens is one that they, like Ashley mentioned,
She's a
they tried
prime
to do a
example
number
for
on-
this.
they tried
Yeah.
to do
Tear her down to
they've-
pieces,
even still to
really.
now, they're
They
tearing her
always do
down
that.
into pieces. And
Yeah.
do you know what's so interesting? I even believe the hype. Let me even be like practical. Yeah, I believe the hype about Candace Owens because there was like a lot of rhetoric around her
Same.
saying that she hated black people, she doesn't care about her community, she loves white people, her husband is white, this one, Kinfolk. Okay, cool. I was like, okay, wait, I have never watched anything from this woman.
Nothing.
I've not watched any piece of content from her. I've just heard that she doesn't care for the people that she looks like, and so they've outcasted her. So I took the time this year to go and watch just one video from her. I sat and I watched the video and I said, wait.
I didn't understand.
I said, wait, hold on.
Nothing she said I disagree
You know the
with.
same thing. When I watched the video, I thought, should I also be part of that? You know, the group being outcasted because I
Because
agreed
I
with
agreed
a
with
lot of her
everything.
views.
And I was like, wait. Do you see how much they have monopolized? No, sorry, no, they have taken advantage of black people and the groupthink that we tend to have, where it's like they can literally make you hate a person you haven't even taken the time to understand. This is a woman that when she speaks, I've heard her speak about certain policies and things in America, and to me, she is someone that cares more about black people than other people that they're trying to prop up as the people that care
and
about
push
them.
in front.
Like all the stuff with what we talked about in our previous episode about music, she's come out and verbally, she's spoken up about how they've tried to make Kanye look crazy. She's come and spoken about what happened to Michael Jackson. She's spoken about how the media has time and time again, even her, they've made her try to look like she endorses Adolf Hitler, and she never once ever said that. And like, I'm like,
Adolf Hitler.
And it's like they're making it so obvious now.
How did they do
You
that?
can't even hide it.
She
had a court case, sis.
Like, they send her
What?
death threats, everything. She recently just got banned from going to Australia.
She had a court case. They took her to court.
All because when she comes out and speaks, she doesn't go with the narrative that most people have. She speaks to her own convictions and what she considers to be important.
And she even said it herself as well. She said she's not going to endorse someone just because they are black. Just because they're black doesn't mean they have the her best interest at heart. And it should be the same for her as well. If you watch her, don't believe what people are saying in media. Listen, research what she's saying, whether you agree or disagree, whatever it is, but at least you've gone out of your way to do your own research. And going back to your other point that you said as well, where it's like they're dangling it in front of the community, it's like, it's so sad, because it's like the black community was so easy to please.
Oh wow,
it's actually embarrassing.
Talk about it, actually.
You see, Kamala Harris could come out to like a Dipset song and she's invited to the cookout. A white person, she's invited. They're invited to the cookout. Wow, they love us. You could have literally the race of race. You could have the racist of racist person go into Big Brother, whatever, and they could sing a different tune, and you can be like, wow, like they love us. They're not racist. They're not racist. Like he's invited to the cookout. It's so embarrassing.
I'm embarrassed.
It's really, really embarrassing.
And the thing is, what they're doing is working. What they're essentially doing is
every time
where you see people that they don't read. I'm not saying black people don't read. Don't ever get me twisted. I'm just saying where you see people that they don't read, they don't do their own research. You can make them believe whatever you want them to believe.
Yeah, that's what the media does.
Old trick for humanity.
It's like people are puppets.
That's what the media is.
Things in
propaganda. Google the word propaganda and the origins of propaganda. The essence is to make people believe something. It's just, and however you make them do it, you stop them from doing their own research. Especially because we live in the era of you can delete history, you can rewrite history. So as they're rewriting it, you're now just making people believe a different narrative.
And you two, you're taking it on board rather than doing your own research. I feel like if we took time out to do our own research on a lot of things,
you'd be shocked to what you believe.
You'd be so surprised what you would find.
Very surprised.
But then sometimes it leaves me with the question of maybe you just don't want to find the answers. Sometimes maybe you're just happy being part of the community.
You're happy in your ignorance.
Of the crowd.
That's
exactly. You're happy in your ignorance. You're happy chastising people on the internet just because they're not
conforming to right.
You're happy with the chaos that is causing.
And please understand, guys. Yeah, like we said, we're not American.
I'm not American.
We don't know the full policy.
Right.
We don't know the full policy from A to This is just from what we've observed, and these are opinions. You don't have to agree, but you will be respectful. There's a quote, Sorry, there's a quote from Malcolm X, and every time I see it, I'm like, that guy knew what he was talking about. He said, if you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And we're seeing it in this day and age.
I'm sorry, I need to talk on something.
We're seeing it
because we're here. I'm gonna talk about it.
I feel like I know it.
And it's you know what I found out this year that really spun me? It's the origins of psychiatry. Okay. Now, I'm very invested in psychology. I think psychology is one of the most beautiful things. Understanding the way human brains work, beautiful. What I found out about Sigmund Freud recently, honestly, shook me to my core. So Sigmund Freud, if you're familiar with psychology, if you learned it at A-level or even at uni, I'm sure he's somebody that came up, and he was this psychologist or maybe psychiatrist. I don't know which psychologist. He came up with the Oedipus complex and all these different complexes, right? So I remember when they taught this to me in sixth form, and it was taught as though what he was teaching and the theories that he came up with were normal. It was taught as if, like, obviously they were giving us different perspectives. It's not to say that they were saying that he's like right, pushing
a narrative,
exactly, but they were just saying that this was teaching the thing. But they were teaching it as though this is actual. This was psychology, right? When I found out who Sigmund Freud was and the people that he created his complexes to cover their what they were doing, his theories came out of trying to cover pedophiles, convicted criminals. He created a lot of the stuff when it came to hysteria and the way that he rationalized that people's brains work so that he could cover up for people that were engaging in pedophilia. Now, what you'll hear in the world is like, oh, this is how we should look at something. This is how we should look at something. This is normal. This is normal. But when you trace things back, when I was just hearing what was happening, this man was involved in spiritual witchcraft Sigmund Freud. This is the thing. I think people sometimes they want to look at like Africa when it comes to witchcraft. Witchcraft has been in operation all over the globe, globally, since the beginning of time. Okay? So if you ever find yourself believing something just because you saw it somewhere, sometimes it's very necessary to do the due diligence.
Do your research.
Do the due diligence. If you want me to send you the link to what I saw and read and found out, I can.
I want to make.
She'll put it in the comments down below.
I'm not gonna
I
lie.
want to make a comment on Sigmund Freud. I studied psychology in sixth form and uni, right? And he's always came up. You're absolutely right. I agree. The part that I've always been confused about with his theories are, I've always wondered why it's being taught in schools. Like, why was that always a thing in sixth form, in college, in university? That if you hear psychology and you hear theories and experiments, it's Sigmund Freud. He's one of the first people that you would hear with amongst a lot of other psychologists. So I'll be honest, I don't know if I completely agreed that his theories were sort of pushed as the truth, because it's always I don't think it was pushed as the truth. That every time it's been sort of introduced to students, it's always been like, this is the idea that Sigmund Freud, I'm going to call him Freud, this is the idea that Freud had. What do you guys think? Let's dissect it
and analyze
exactly what these theories are and how can we relate it to loads of things that are happening in the world. That's how it's always been portrayed. I don't think it's ever been portrayed as this is the truth and this is how things are, because I remember the first time I heard one of his Oedipus complex, I remember questioning that, and a lot of people around me, we did question it because what is that? What does that mean, but I can understand why when you push a narrative like that, how it can almost not become normalized, how you feel like you can then start to justify it and insert it into certain situations, like, oh, that's why this person feels this way because of that theory. That's why, again, it goes back to my question, why is Freud such a big name in psychology? Why is he a figurehead in psychology?
That's what I was going to say. So I wanted to clarify. I'm not saying it was ever pushed as the truth. I just want to clarify that. Why is he revered for something very perverted? Now, that doesn't make sense. And the reason why it's scary is because when you look back to when he first started practicing, the reason why he started coming up and doing all these things was because there were women that were coming out and saying that they'd been abused, they'd been assaulted, they'd been abused, and then they would call these women mad. That's where mass hysteria, it came from, this era, mass hysteria. They call them mad, but they've been abused, so they weren't treating what had actually happened, and then they called it, you have the Oedipus complex because you have affections for your father. No, your father abused you, right?
That's crazy.
This is when I found that out, I said, if they're able to do that with something like that when you're in school, you're taught it on a very minuscule level. Yeah. But if you were to do the research, you'd be like, this person was wicked. Imagine what other things in the society and just
they're disguising or presenting in a healthy way.
It's normal. It's
right.
That's why, again, with the curriculum in schools, that's why when you're young, they fill our minds. School is so important for lots of different reasons, but it's also important for you to be able to have a mind of your own and do your own research, most importantly, because again, the curriculum will feed you lots of different theories, lots of different people, psychologists, like you said, just lots of different agendas. But it's for you, again, the older I'm getting, independent learning has become such a thing. And I think maybe that's why universities push it a lot, because once you come out of uni, or even when you're in your little bubble of uni, you start to form your own mind on certain things, and you might not agree with some of the things that you're being taught. So that is where you have to take the initiative to go and do your own research. It is so important. 100%. Not to even talk about the loads of things that the school curriculum doesn't even cover, that you have to do your own research for anyway. But even imagine even the things that they do teach you have to still do your own research,
because they're telling you from one lens. It's crazy how we were taught. We were in school, I don't know if you guys felt like this too, but the entirety of Black history was slavery. And how can that be the entirety of my history?
I was, what's so funny? I was literally just thinking of that.
How can that be the entirety? When we come to school, when we're learning about history, Black history was just slavery. But when it was every other history, it's monarchies that we're learning about. The British monarchy, we're learning about all these other things, all these expeditions that people did. But when it was Black history, it's only slavery.
As if that's all that there is to our history.
They're even showing us
at one point roots. That's what I believe.
They're showing us
we had other history.
They're showing us roots in school.
I remember that.
No, that one's, I'm sorry, that one, when you think about it, you lot were mocking it. roots.
And that's how-
and then I'll never forget.
That's our history.
I went on a school trip. This is sixth form. We went to like south of France, and then we watched 12 Years a Slave. And then I'll never forget, like, because I'll never forget it, yeah, because it was just me and another person, like the two only black people on the trip. And then she came to me, she goes, "Oh, Ashley, what did you think?" You know what I said, "What do you mean, what do I think? What did you think?" I asked her, "What did you think?" She goes, "Oh no, because, you know, like, are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine.
What do you mean?
I'm great. How are you? How do you feel? That's your people oppressing. How do you feel?
Why sorry?
Why are you like it you don't that
No, because
What?
let's actually. So you know what? One thing I've always had questions for when it comes to teachers, especially in the UK. Do they, because it's a curriculum, they obviously have a set of things they have to teach students.
Right.
So is it a thing where they have to teach those students those things, or let's say they have opposing views to what they're teaching kids? Can they protest it, or do they have to?
I think they have to follow the curriculum.
They have to follow the
They
curriculum.
can contest it, but I've heard from teachers, it never usually
You have to follow the curriculum.
works. Yeah,
because I think
what's
from the
presented,
lenses
you
of
have to
me
do.
being, let's say I was just like a teacher at school, because another thing that I learned recently is a teacher doesn't have to major or go to uni to study what they're teaching. So for example, maybe you didn't, maybe for the core subjects, but everything else, like for example, I can go to be a teacher and I have to teach history, then I teach RE. That's why I see substitute teachers doing lots of
everything.
Do you know what I mean? So that's where the question then started to come from. Like, first of all, you don't even necessarily need to know exactly what you're teaching these kids, as long as you're following the curriculum. Do a bit of research, find
Put a
quizzes
lesson
on
plan
the internet,
together. That's it.
slap
Print
it in their
it.
face. That's the whole lesson done. And then, sorry, not to undermine the efforts of teachers, by the way, because we know teachers are doing a great job and phenomenal
a serious job.
But it's just, again, when you do your own research, it just allows you to question more things, and you're just more exposed to things, and you're just like, oh my god, like, is there more I can do to gain more understanding and knowledge, and just instead of just hearing things and just feeling it out to the world, it's kind of like a ripple effect. How can I be better? How can I change that and send the right messages out there? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it could also. I think that probably also contributes to why a lot of teachers leave the profession, because I think knowing that
besides the fact that they're underpaid,
and they're not valued. Apart from that, I'm sure there's a lot of teachers that feel as though they know so much more than what they're allowed to teach. They're aware that what they're probably teaching these kids is not enough, and it's not the full story. And I think it's very sinister to hijack the youth of society, who are the future minds of a country, of a world, and only indoctrinate them with a certain type of knowledge. I think that's very, very dangerous.
Imagine a teacher wanting to teach more about Black history. Like, it's not just about slavery. There's other things, like, especially as Black kids at that age, they want to hear more. They should hear more, just so
it teaches them a victim mentality from the very beginning of their life.
I know I had the victim mentality
because the only lens you view yourself is how you're taught things. The only reason I was able to not have a victim mentality is because when I got home, I'm not being told that because of that I have to work 2 times harder. But I can only imagine if everywhere you're going, you're being compounded with the same information,
you're going to start to believe it.
It becomes a reality.
And it's not to say that slavery didn't have an impact on the world. It's not to say that any of these things, but that is not the entirety of a Black person's history, and it never has been.
Our history is so rich. Like, there's so much
richer
more
than you'll ever know.
But they don't want you to.
It's crazy because they tell you about Black history, but the Black history they're telling you about is in America, when we're African.
Right. That's a good point.
Why don't we hear about Africa?
Yeah.
All we know is that people were taken from there. But what about the continent?
Why don't we hear about the creativity that Black people have contributed?
That there were universities
to countries
long before slavery happened. There was universities in Africa, fully operating societies. People used to come from the Western world to Africa to learn things.
Even just key individuals in our community. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't hear about Madam C.J. Walker until maybe sixth form, after sixth form, because it wasn't taught. It wasn't until when you go to research, see, hold on, like when you're hearing about, the first Black person to do the first Black person to create this, we created so much
but
stuff.
you'll hear about the first Black person, you hear about the first person to build telephones and build aeroplanes. We'll hear about that. But not the first Black person to do this and do that. So the amount of the amount of things that Black people have invented, like, you would never think it's come from a Black person. There's a reason for that.
So many things. Like Hidden Figures is another film.
Yeah.
That,
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that does that beautifully.
Hidden
About how
Figures
black
was
women
so
were behind
good.
the first trip to space or something like that. Like stuff like that. Like, why wouldn't you want people to know that in school? I just don't understand why you wouldn't want them to know that.
Because again, it doesn't fit their agenda.
The
Like,
narrative
and it's like,
changes.
and then if you interrogate, people might be like, it's not that deep. Maybe it's not that. No, it's not. It is. It is.
Because think about it, we have a whole semester from September all the way to the next year of June or whatever, and the history that we're learning about, the black history, is a fragment of it, if that.
Like, I don't remember any other thing I was taught in black history.
Slavery.
Like,
that
I'm
was
trying
it.
to remember if there was anything else.
I'll never forget
don't
as
think there
well.
was.
One of like the homework that we had in secondary school was we had to go home and like adapt our own stories during the time of slavery.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
So
sometimes they'll give you like
it
a
could
diary.
be, you had to
pretend
create
like
a diary, and you had to
in
pretend
those
that you
times
were
and you
in
have to write a
so if it
diary.
be you falling in love like on the slave ship,
Make up
or,
your story,
you know,
just
whatever
about,
it
like,
could be.
or maybe you
and
were
I'll
on the
never forget,
boat
like the
and it was about
diary
to be
had to
wrecked.
look like, oh, you wrote it during that time. So you know what I did?
You
I
have
got
to
tea
burn it.
bags.
Some people
Yeah.
you burn it.
Sorry, that's
Like, yeah, I
insanity.
remember those.
That's
Yeah.
insanity. Sorry, I'm
Like, the older you get, the more
I'm
it's
lost.
like,
I'm
lost
looking
for
back,
words.
and guys, you know, I didn't hand in that homework on time because I genuinely didn't believe this was right, but I couldn't speak because I went to a predominantly white school, so I couldn't speak up and say, oh,
what's going
when
on?
everybody else in the class has done it.
No, I'm at a loss for words.
Sis, I put tea bags on that diary to make it look like it was from
Yeah.
that time.
You got to
Me and
crumble it
Tem,
up. And
we was in the same history class when we was watching Roots. Yeah, to me, showing kids that
I was so
Temi
traumatized.
Temi couldn't watch it.
I was so traumatized.
It's a lot.
That I remember it. I remember
Roots,
Temi's.
I've gone my whole childhood. My parents have raised me. I've
They've
now gotten
shielded
to
you
school,
from certain
and
stuff.
that is what they want to show me in school.
Temi had a visceral, like you could see in her body.
Do you remember?
reaction.
I was so
She had
sad.
like,
The
her
whole
body,
day I
her
was not
reaction
myself.
I saw it.
Why do I want
to?
to? Yes, no, of course. Like Black history, slavery is a part of Black history. We're not taking that away. So yes, maybe those are things that I
good to
did
know.
need to know.
It's good to know.
However, why did you plaster it in my face? Did I want
At what
to see
age?
that?
I think I watched it when I was in year 8
I
or
just
year
think
7.
I haven't seen a film like that like for anybody else.
And
I
it
just
really
haven't.
gave me that victim mentality because I just thought, oh my God, these people owe my ancestors so much for what they put us
And it
through.
breeds hatred in you for white people.
100%.
Which
That
is
was me
also-
after I watched 12 Years a
which is
Slave.
also
That's
not
why I spoke to
right.
my teacher like that.
Slave was
It's just not right. None of it is
No.
right. Even another part about it, they talked about apartheid too, but that's also sad.
Which one?
Apartheid in South Africa. What was happening to black people in South Africa?
Oh.
Like these are the things I remember. I remember being taught a song, Free Nelson Mandela.
I remember that.
Do you remember?
Free
I'm like,
Nelson Mandela.
Sorry.
I'm telling you.
When you look back, a lot of stuff was just very comical.
And it's like,
I had nightmares. I'm not gonna lie to you. There was a point I did have nightmares just of like the images, the vulgar.
it was when they were branding his
the
back with his
explicit-
name.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That was
You're showing me
no.
that in school. I'm a child.
You're showing
And
how
like,
they're being whipped.
We never used to see any other
I was
content
gonna
for
say
anybody
no other
else.
history like except
that.
black, like come on.
And there's other brutal histories. Our histories are the only one that's brutal. Yeah, we never saw, but it was like
To be fair, we did learn about
beheadings
like
and stuff and all of
yeah,
that.
we also learned about like those the Jewish camps and the Holocaust.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we learned
yeah,
about
yeah.
that too.
That's true.
but
You
do
can't
get
not
what I
teach
mean?
that, to be fair. But that's never taught as their entire history.
Yeah,
Right.
there was just more.
It's
to
taught as what happened to them.
Yeah.
And it's very, very tragic. That is one of the worst things that's ever happened in the world.
yes, 100%.
But it's never taught as Germany's entire history.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
It's true.
There's just
Again, I feel like there's we're sounding so woke these days, but I don't care. I feel like my spiritual
No,
eyes
because
are open.
yeah,
It's
no,
so
for real.
Open your eyes. Even
Because
when
it's
you,
right there in
so
your
sorry.
face.
I promise you, if this was a year ago, a lot of these things I'm talking about wasn't that deep then. It's just like, oh, guys, it's not that deep. But the older I'm getting,
Yeah, you
like,
realise.
Do you know what it is? Even if you don't want to educate yourself for yourself, if you're a person that want to raise kids, you've got to
It's
be
time.
open to these things. You got to be open to these discussions, because you're going to raise those children, and you want them to have the right understanding growing up. Not to say our parents didn't do a great job, because at the end of the day they were probably, you know, filled with different things as well. I can only speak for my parents. They were like migrants. They've come to a new country. Their focus isn't on that. They're just trying to, do you know what I mean? But we have that privilege. Do you know what I mean? Our parents have sacrificed just so we can have 100%. You know, a settled life in you know, the countries that we're in. 100%. So our minds can go to other things like this, so we can raise our kids the right way. I agree. Like I'm doing it for myself, because it's always good to understand these things, just so you're intellectual and you know about your history and just everything we've spoken about. General. But I'll be honest, I'm also doing it for my children.
For real, because we owe it to our children to be knowledgeable, because I don't want my children to ask me a question I don't know and they're having to hear, like, understand it or hear it from someone else, and potentially risk them hearing the wrong information.
Yeah, I want them to,
because there's too much at risk.
Yeah, because that information that, you know, we could be avoiding or trying to prevent them from hearing, not to say they won't hear it, but they're already equipped.
They're fortified.
Exactly. By the time they hear it, hopefully they should be already equipped to be able to deal with those issues and speak out and say, no, this is not what I believe in. If it is wrong,
they're like, no, that's not it.
Yeah, it's not right, or I don't believe in it. This is my opinion on it, rather than going with the masses and what they believe.
Yeah, they have a wider perspective to engage with the world with, and that's what you don't have when you're a child, because you're only taught one thing.
That's it.
What you want to equip a child to have critical thinking. Yes, and I think a lot of people,
that's the word. Yeah,
critical thinking. Like, if we make it even more applicable to our viewers and our listeners, yeah, like, think about the content you take in, even podcasts. Podcasting is huge at the moment. There are so many different types of podcasts, and if you, like, for me, one thing that scares me is when I see certain people perpetuating a narrative of, spend his money, this one, that one, this one, that one, this one, that one.
Spend his money.
Do you know why it's dangerous? There are people listening to you and they're patterning their lives after what you're saying.
Young people at that.
Like it's all messaging. All of what we're talking about is messaging. What are they? Think about what you're saying on your podcast and what you think the future effects of what you're going to say is going to have on people. Because I think that's something, by God's grace, I think we really care about.
We're very mindful of that.
We care about it heavily. I want to be able to come back to this podcast when we have kids and be like, look, Mum, look what Mummy was saying.
My children can listen to that.
And I'm seeing a lot of podcasts in our community that are worrisome.
Do you know what? Funny enough, I think it goes back to what we were saying in our previous episodes about supply and demand. A lot of people genuinely, they're just fueling things that they think people want to hear, rather than speaking the truth and speaking about edifying conversations. Right. It's like, oh, you know, I'm not going to go viral if I don't say something outlandish, or, you know.
You want to say what's popular and what will resonate with people. And again, like you said, what will go viral. If you're not talking about body counts, if you're not talking about, Young Thug got released from prison, this person got arrested, and it's like, if I don't speak about this, then who's really going to listen? But I genuinely believe that there is an audience that wants to hear the truth and wants to hear something out of what is at the forefront of the Black community, outside of pop culture or what's do you know what I mean? Like, there's an audience for it.
And I think in essence what we are saying is not to say you can't have those discussions, because sometimes we even have those discussions, very light-hearted conversations, because sometimes that's what you want to hear, like after a long day. Like, there's room for that too.
Right, you want light conversations.
Exactly. But I think it's just not about sort of downgrading and just being careful and being mindful of the sort of content that you're taking in and you're putting out to others. Because again, you know, we said it, I think it was our previous episode that we said it, just like the order of things and just the restriction of content isn't there anymore. So everything is just out there and widespread for anyone to just see. So maybe we can just be mindful, just because a kid can go and just see your content and take it on their head and then start to believe these things. 100%. And then it's a ripple effect, like Ashley said.
Because exactly what both of you said is exactly that. Like, there's nothing wrong with light-hearted content. I think there's always going to be a difference there between light-hearted and what is edifying, because we can come here and talk about what's happening in pop culture, but our perspective on it and our views on it will be what influences whether the content is edifying or not.
Right.
And so there's nothing, I feel there's nothing wrong with people reporting news. Report the news all you want. Report what's on socials, report what's on pop culture, whatever. But what are you saying?
Exactly.
What is the message? What do you want people to go away from your podcast or from any content that you put out there? What do you want them to go away with? And how do you want their lives to be?
Because at the end of the day, what matters is that we will all stand before God and we're going to be accountable for the words that we say. So when God is telling you on Thursday the 13th of October at 7:56, this is what you said.
What will you say?
Not just on camera, guys, off camera too.
That too.
Right. And on that
Yes.
note, we will see you next week.
Bye.